Between 1893 and 1968, one of America's largest private residences stood in St. Louis, Missouri. The Bixby Mansion occupied an entire city block. It contained over 50 rooms. It cost millions to build. For decades, it symbolized Gilded Age wealth and ambition in the American Midwest. Today, nothing remains. The site is a parking lot. This is the complete history of the Bixby Mansion, how it was built, who lived there, why it mattered, and how it was destroyed. This is also the story of St. Louis itself, a city that rose to prominence in the Gilded Age, then declined, losing nearly all its grand mansions in the process. If you're interested in American architectural history and the rise and fall of Gilded Age cities, please like and subscribe. The Gateway to the West. Population growth. 1870, 310,864 residents, 8th largest U.S. city. 1880, 350,518 residents. 1900, 575,238 residents, 4th largest U.S. city after New York, Chicago, Philadelphia. Economic position. St. Louis dominated the American interior in the late 19th century for several reasons. 1. Mississippi River commerce. Major port, second only to New Orleans on Mississippi River system. Steamboats transported goods up and down river. Transfer point between river and rail. 2. Railroad hub. Multiple railroad lines converged in St. Louis. Terminal Railroad Association connected all lines. Freight distribution center. Passengers transferred between eastern and western lines. 3. Manufacturing center. Beer brewing. Anheuser-Busch, founded in 1852. Shoe manufacturing, largest shoe production center in the U.S., chemicals and pharmaceuticals, garment production, foundries and metalworking. 4. Financial center, banks and investment houses, commodity trading, insurance companies. Wealth concentration. This economic dominance created enormous private wealth. By 1890, St. Louis had hundreds of millionaires. They built mansions to display this wealth. Major mansion districts. Lucas Place, 1850s to 1880s. First exclusive residential street. Large homes on private street. Declined after 1880s as wealthy moved west. Van Deventer Place, 1870s to 1920s. Private gated street. Elaborate mansions. Gates locked. Controlled access. Later demolished entirely. Westmoreland and Portland Places, 1880s to 1930s. Private streets in Central West End. Some mansions survive today, still exclusive addresses. Grand Avenue, 1880s to 1910s. Public street with mansion row. Later became commercial, most mansions demolished. Architectural ambition. St. Louis Gilded Age mansions rivaled those in eastern cities. Local architects studied in Paris and New York. Wealthy St. Louisians commissioned French chateaux, Italian Renaissance palaces, Gothic Revival mansions. The city competed with Chicago, Cincinnati, and other Midwest cities to demonstrate cultural sophistication and wealth. Into this environment came the Bixby family. William Keeney Bixby, 1857 to 1931. Birth, December 7, 1857, Herkimer County, New York. Early life. Born to modest farming family, little formal education. Moved to St. Louis as a young man, late 1870s, started in shoe manufacturing industry. Business career. 1880s, works in shoe manufacturing. St. Louis dominated American shoe production. Dozens of factories, thousands of workers. Bixby learns business from the ground up. 1891, founds Bixby Shoe Company, manufacturing plant in St. Louis, produces men's and women's shoes, rapidly expands. 1890s to 1900s, company grows enormously. multiple factories, national distribution, one of the largest shoe manufacturers in America. Bixby becomes very wealthy. Additional investments: real estate, banking, other manufacturing concerns, diversified fortune beyond shoes. Marriage and family. 1880, William K. Bixby marries Sarah E., surname varies in historical records. Children, multiple children, exact number and names vary in historical records. Raised in St. Louis, educated at the finest schools. Bixby's wealth. By the early 1890s, William K. Bixby was a multimillionaire. Estimated fortune, $5 to $10 million, approximately $150 to $300 million in 2024 dollars. He decided to build a mansion befitting his status. The site. Location: 4900 block of Lindell Boulevard, St. Louis. Lindell Boulevard. Major east-west street in St. Louis, connected downtown to Forest Park, site of 1904 World's Fair. Tree-lined boulevard, becoming fashionable address in 1890s. The property: entire city block, approximately 3 acres, corner lot, maximum visibility and prestige. Purchase: early 1891, exact price unknown but substantial. The architect: Thomas Annan, exact dates uncertain, active 1880s to 2010s. St. Louis architect, trained in traditional architectural methods, specialized in large residences and commercial buildings. Other St. Louis commissions included mansions and office buildings. Architectural style: Richardsonian Romanesque. Characteristics of the style: named after architect Henry Hobson Richardson, popular 1880s to 1900s, based on medieval European Romanesque architecture. Heavy, massive appearance, rough-cut stone, rusticated, round arches, towers, asymmetrical design, conveys strength, permanence, wealth. Examples of Richardsonian Romanesque: Trinity Church, Boston, Richardson's masterpiece. Allegheny County Courthouse, Pittsburgh. Many university buildings, courthouses, libraries. The Bixby Mansion would be St. Louis's largest example of this style. Groundbreaking: spring 1891. Construction, approximately 2 years. Completion, 1893. Total time, relatively fast for such a large project, good planning and unlimited budget. Labor: hundreds of workers, stone masons, skilled craftsmen for carved stone, carpenters, plasterers, painters, metal workers, glaziers for windows, landscapers. Materials: stone, granite, primary exterior material, sourced from Missouri quarries and possibly imported, rough-cut, rusticated finish characteristic of Richardsonian Romanesque. Carved details around windows, doors, and arches. Wood: oak, primary interior wood, mahogany, fine details, furniture-quality woodwork, other hardwoods for different rooms, carved staircases, paneling, doors. Metal: iron, structural supports, decorative railings, bronze, door hardware, light fixtures, copper, roof elements, gutters, downspouts. Glass: large windows, many rooms had floor-to-ceiling windows. Stained glass, select locations, entrance, stair landings. Imported glass, some from Europe for quality. Other materials: marble, fireplaces and floors in public rooms, tile, bathrooms and service areas, plaster, ceilings, decorative moldings. Cost: estimated $500,000 to $1 million, approximately $15 to $30 million in 2024 dollars. This made it one of the most expensive private residences built in St. Louis in the 1890s. The mansion itself. Exterior dimensions and features. Size: Main building approximately 30,000 to 40,000 square feet. Sources vary, exact blueprints not preserved. 3 full stories above ground, full basement, service areas, storage, mechanicals, attic, servants' quarters, storage. Footprint, roughly 100 feet by 150 feet, estimates based on lot size and descriptions. Irregular shape, not simple rectangle, towers, wings, projections created complex footprint. Height, main building approximately 50 to 60 feet tall, tower rose approximately 75 to 80 feet, imposing presence, visible for blocks. Exterior style elements, the tower, northwest corner, most prominent position on the lot, round, cylindrical tower, conical roof, pointed top, slate shingles, multiple stories, windows at each level, commanding view of Lindell Boulevard. Arches, round arches throughout, Romanesque characteristic. Main entrance had large arched doorway, windows topped with smaller arches. Arcade, series of arches on one side creating covered porch. Roof, slate shingles, multiple levels, complex roofline with different wings at different heights. Decorative chimneys, multiple fireplaces required mini chimneys. Copper gutters and downspouts. Windows, varied sizes, large on main floors, smaller on upper floors. Stone surrounds, carved frames around each window, some grouped pairs or trios of windows, stained glass in select locations. Entrance, large double doors, carved stone archway, porte cochere, covered area where carriages could pull up, passengers exit protected from the weather. Grounds and landscaping. Total property, entire city block, approximately 3 acres. Landscape design, lawn, manicured grass, trees, existing mature trees preserved, additional trees planted. Setback from street, mansion not directly on the sidewalk but set back creating a front lawn. Gardens, formal gardens, geometric beds, carefully planned plantings, flower beds, seasonal plantings, possibly rose garden, fashionable in the Gilded Age. Pathways, gravel or stone walks connecting different areas of the property, allowing garden strolls. Service areas, separate service entrance, rear or side of the property, carriage house or stable, structure for horses, carriages, later automobiles, possibly greenhouse for 4 year-round flowers, exotic plants. Fencing or walls, wrought iron fence likely surrounded property, defining boundaries, providing security while remaining elegant. Stone posts or walls at entrance. Maintenance, full-time gardeners, multiple staff to maintain 3 acres. Seasonal plantings refreshed regularly, lawns mowed and trimmed, trees pruned. The grounds reinforced the mansion's grandeur. Passers-by could see the entire estate from the street. The first floor contained public rooms where the Bixby family entertained guests, received visitors, and displayed their wealth and taste. Entrance hall, size, large, approximately 20 feet by 30 feet, estimates vary. Purpose, first impression for visitors, set the tone for entire house. Features, flooring, marble, black and white checkerboard pattern or elaborate inlaid design, imported Italian or Vermont marble. Walls, wood paneling, oak likely, or plaster with decorative moldings. Staircase, grand staircase, primary architectural feature of the entrance hall, wide, allowing ladies in large dresses to ascend comfortably. Carved oak or mahogany, elaborate newel posts, decorative posts at ends of the railing, possibly split staircase, ascending then dividing into 2 branches leading to the second floor landing. Ceiling, high, 15 feet minimum, decorative plaster moldings, possibly coffered, recessed panels creating a geometric pattern. Chandelier, large, crystal or brass, gas or early electric lighting. Other elements, Fireplace, possibly, not always included in entrance halls but provided warmth and focal point. Coat closet or area for guests' wraps. Mirrors, decorative objects, vases, sculptures. Drawing room or parlor. Size, large, approximately 25 feet by 30 feet. Purpose, formal reception of guests, ladies' entertaining space, afternoon teas, musicales, small gatherings. Features, flooring, hardwood, parquet pattern common, possibly covered with oriental rugs. Walls, silk or damask wallpaper, expensive fabric wall coverings, or painted plaster with decorative moldings. Picture rail, molding near the ceiling for hanging paintings. Ceiling, ornate plasterwork, medallion in center for chandelier, possibly painted designs. Windows, large windows, floor to ceiling or nearly so, heavy drapes, velvet or brocade, lace curtains underneath. Furniture, sofa, chairs, upholstered in silk or velvet, small tables, piano, upright or baby grand, music essential to Gilded Age entertaining, arranged in conversational groupings. Fireplace, marble mantel, imported Italian marble or American equivalent, carved details, tile surround, fire screen, tools. Lighting, chandelier, central, wall sconces, table lamps, gas or early electric, depending on year. St. Louis had electricity by 1890s, but not all homes immediately converted. Decorative elements, paintings, landscapes, portraits showed cultural refinement. Mirrors, often above mantel, porcelain objects, books on tables, fresh flowers. Dining room, size, very large, 30 feet by 40 feet possible, needed to accommodate dinner parties of 20 to 30 guests. Purpose, formal dining, most important entertaining space in Gilded Age homes. Features, flooring, hardwood parquet, large oriental rug under dining table. Walls, dark wood paneling, typical for dining rooms, mahogany or walnut. Wainscoting, paneling on lower walls, wallpaper or paint above. Plate rail, a shelf near the ceiling for displaying decorative plates. Ceiling, coffered or beamed, elaborate chandelier mounting. Windows, multiple large windows, heavy drapes for warmth and privacy during evening dinners. Furniture, long dining table, extendable, could seat 12 to 30 depending on occasion. Matching chairs, high-backed and upholstered. Sideboard, large cabinet for serving dishes, silverware. China cabinet, glass-fronted cabinet displaying fine china, crystal. Serving tables. Fireplace, large. Dining rooms often had massive fireplaces. Marble or carved wood mantel. Fire tools, screens, kept the room comfortable for long evenings. Lighting, large chandelier, central, above the table. Wall sconces, candelabras on the table for formal dinners. Butler's pantry, adjacent to dining room, connection to the kitchen, storage for china, crystal, silver, workspace for the butler to prepare serving dishes before bringing to the table. Library or study, size, medium to large, 20 feet by 25 feet approximate. Purpose, William Bixby's private space, business discussions, reading, cigar smoking, masculine domain. Features, flooring, hardwood, heavy oriental rug. Walls, floor-to-ceiling built-in bookshelves, dark wood, oak, mahogany, walnut. Ladders on rails to reach upper shelves. Spaces between shelves for artwork or decorative objects. Ceiling, coffered or beamed, darker, heavier feeling than ladies' rooms. Windows, large windows for natural light, reading, heavy drapes. Furniture, large desk, a partner's desk or executive desk, leather chair, additional seating, leather armchairs, small tables for lamps, ashtrays, fireplace, substantial, wood or marble mantel, fire tools, screens, kept the room comfortable for long evenings. Lighting, desk lamp, floor lamps, chandelier or ceiling fixture, less ornate than in public rooms. Decorative elements, leather-bound books displayed as much for appearance as reading, globe, sculptures or bronzes, hunting or sporting prints, possibly hunting trophies if Bixby hunted, smoking accessories, humidor for cigars, ashtrays, pipes, pipe stands. Conservatory or music room. Many Gilded Age mansions included a conservatory, glass-enclosed room for plants, or dedicated music room. The Bixby mansion likely had one or both. If conservatory, features: glass walls and ceiling to admit maximum light for plants, tropical plants, ferns, palms, possibly fountain, wicker or cast-iron furniture, connection to garden, used for tea, informal gatherings. If music room, features: grand piano, centerpiece, seating for small audience, excellent acoustics, possibly harp or other instruments, sheet music storage, used for musicales, small private concerts. Additional first-floor spaces, billiard room, possibly included, popular in Gilded Age mansions, billiard table, men's entertainment space. Morning room or breakfast room, smaller informal dining space, family meals as opposed to formal dining room for entertaining, lighter, brighter than formal dining room. Cloak room, near entrance, storage for guests' coats, hats. Powder room, small washroom for guests' use. Interior, second floor. The second floor was family's private domain, bedrooms, personal sitting rooms, bathrooms. Master bedroom suite. Size, very large. The bedroom itself 20 feet by 25 feet plus additional rooms. Layout, master bedroom, sleeping room, Mr. Bixby's dressing room, Mrs. Bixby's dressing room, possibly private sitting room, master bathroom. Master bedroom features: flooring, hardwood, carpeting or large rug, walls, wallpaper, lighter, more delicate patterns than downstairs public rooms, or painted plaster. Ceiling, decorative plaster moldings, central light fixture. Windows, large windows, drapes for privacy. Furniture, large bed, possibly four-poster or elaborate headboard, nightstands, dresser, wardrobe or armoire, chairs, vanity in Mrs. Bixby's area. Fireplace, bedroom fireplace for warmth and comfort, decorative mantel. Dressing rooms, separate spaces for Mr. and Mrs. Bixby to dress, wardrobes, closets, built-in closets not standard yet, freestanding wardrobes, mirrors, storage for clothes, shoes, accessories. Master bathroom, relatively new feature in 1890s homes, tile floor, porcelain fixtures, bathtub, sink, toilet, possibly separate water closet, toilet in a separate small room for privacy, hot and cold running water, luxury. Children's bedrooms. Number, multiple, depending on the number of Bixby children, likely 3 to 5 bedrooms. Size, smaller than master suite, but still substantial, 15 by 20 feet each. Features, similar to master but simpler, age-appropriate furniture, each child likely had individual room, mark of wealth, poor families shared rooms, possibly shared bathroom between children's rooms. Guest bedrooms. Number 2 to 4, accommodating overnight guests, essential for families of this social level. Features: well-appointed but less personal than family bedrooms, full bedroom furniture, shared guest bathroom. Nursery. If young children, nursery room, playroom, children's meals. Nurse's room, live-in nanny's bedroom adjacent to nursery. Sewing room. Space for household sewing, mending. Storage for fabrics, sewing supplies. Workspace for seamstress or lady of house. Second floor bathrooms. Number 4 to 6 total on the second floor. Features: porcelain fixtures, tile walls and floors, separate bathtubs and sinks, some with both bathtub and shower, water closets, toilets, linen closets. Bathrooms were still relatively new feature in 1890s. Having multiple bathrooms was mark of extreme wealth. Interior, third floor and attic. Interior, third floor. Primary use, additional bedrooms, storage. Rooms, extra guest bedrooms, less elaborate than second floor. Storage rooms, possibly servants' bedrooms, though many servants' quarters in the attic or basement. Schoolroom if children were young and had a governess. Attic. Primary use, servants' quarters, storage. Servants' bedrooms, multiple small rooms, simple furnishings, bed, dresser, small table, shared bathroom, much plainer than family areas. Hot in summer, cold in winter, the least comfortable part of the house. Storage. Trunks, seasonal items, furniture not currently in use, family archives, old papers. Interior, basement. The basement contains service areas and mechanical systems. Kitchen. Size, large, 20 feet by 30 feet or more. Location, basement, kept cooking heat and smells away from living areas. Features: cooking, large stove, coal or early gas, multiple ovens, work surfaces, tables for food preparation, sinks for washing dishes, vegetables. Storage: pantries, dry goods, icebox or early refrigerator, cooling, shelving for pots, pans, and dishes. Staff: workspace for cook and kitchen maids, usually 2 to 4 kitchen staff for house this size. Servants' hall. Purpose: dining room for household staff. Features: table and chairs, simpler than family dining room, where servants ate meals together. Butler's pantry, secondary. Storage for everyday dishes, silver polishing area, workspace for butler. Laundry. Size, large room. Features: laundry tubs for washing clothes, drying area, ironing tables, storage for linens, 1 to 2 laundry maids. Wine cellar. Cool storage for wine, racks for bottles, possibly locked, valuable inventory. Coal room/furnace room. Heating system. Coal furnace, large cast iron, ducts or pipes to radiators throughout house. Coal storage, tons of coal delivered regularly. Fireman, staff member who tended furnace, kept fires going. Other basement rooms. Storage rooms, servants' work areas, mechanical rooms for plumbing, heating systems, possibly servants' bathroom. Staff and operations. Running a mansion of this size required large staff. Household staff, estimated 15 to 25 people. Upper servants, butler. Head of male staff, managed household operations, supervised meals, service, answered the door, received visitors, managed wine cellar. Housekeeper, head of female staff, managed cleaning, linens, supervised maids, ordered household supplies. Cook, planned and prepared all meals, supervised kitchen staff, managed kitchen budget. Lower servants, footmen, 2 to 3. Assisted butler, served meals, answered the door, ran errands. Lady's maid, Mrs. Bixby's personal attendant, helped her dress, managed her wardrobe, styled her hair. Valet, Mr. Bixby's personal attendant, helped him dress, maintained his clothes. Housemaids, 4 to 6, cleaned rooms, made beds, dusted, polished, each assigned specific areas. Kitchen maids, 2 to 3. Assisted cook, washed dishes, prepared vegetables, cleaned kitchen. Laundress, 1 to 2. Washed and ironed all household linens and clothing. Scullery maid, lowest position, washed pots and pans, cleaned floors, hardest physical labor. Outdoor staff, coachman/chauffeur, drove carriage, later automobile, maintained vehicles. Groom, cared for horses. Gardeners, 2 to 4, maintained grounds, planted, mowed, trimmed. Wages, staff received room, board, and modest wages. Total annual staff costs likely $10,000 to $15,000, approximately $300,000 to $450,000 in 2024 dollars. Daily routine, morning. Servants rose early, 5 to 6 a.m., lit fires, prepared breakfast. Family arose later, 8 to 9 a.m., breakfast in breakfast room or dining room. Daytime, Mr. Bixby to office, managing business interests. Mrs. Bixby managed household, meeting with housekeeper, cook, planning. Possibly social calls, visiting friends. Children to school or lessons with governess. Afternoon, lunch, Mrs. Bixby might receive callers, formal visiting hours, or attend ladies' clubs, charity work. Evening, family dinner, if no guests, informal in the breakfast room, or formal dinner party, entertaining guests in the dining room. After-dinner activities, music, reading, conversation in the drawing room. Bed relatively early, 10 to 11 p.m. Entertaining. The Bixby Mansion was built for entertaining. St. Louis Gilded Age society was highly formal and competitive. Dinner parties, frequent, weekly or more during social season, 12 to 30 guests. Multi-course meals, 8 to 12 courses common. Service à la Russe, Russian style, courses brought in sequence served by footmen. Fine china, crystal, silver, wines with each course, lasted 2 to 3 hours. After dinner, men to library for cigars and brandy, women to drawing room for coffee. Later, all to drawing room for music and conversation. Receptions, large gatherings, 50 to 100 guests, standing, mingling, light refreshments, showcased house to a wider social circle. Balls, less frequent but grand, music, dancing, large space required, possibly furniture cleared from drawing room and dining room, creating ballroom, orchestra hired, midnight supper. Musicals, small concerts in the music room, professional musicians or talented amateurs, 20 to 40 guests. Garden parties, summer entertaining, outdoors on lawn, tents and refreshments, croquet, lawn games. Social season. St. Louis society had defined seasons: fall, winter, spring, October through May, active social season, dinner parties, receptions, balls, theater and opera attendance, charity events. Summer, June through September, many wealthy families left St. Louis, hot and humid, traveled to cooler climates, Michigan, East Coast resorts, or Europe. The Bixby family likely had summer residence elsewhere, mansion closed or minimally staffed during summer months. The Bixby family's social position. The mansion established the Bixbys as first-tier St. Louis society. William K. Bixby was member of exclusive clubs, St. Louis Club, Country Club, etc., patron of arts and culture, philanthropist, donated to hospitals, universities, and cultural institutions, business leader. Mrs. Bixby, leader in women's social circles, charity organizer, cultural patron. Their children married well, connecting to other prominent families. The mansion was symbol and tool of this social position. Peak population and the beginning of change. 1920 census, St. Louis population reached 772,897, fourth largest city in the U.S. after New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia. Peak population would never be exceeded. 1930 census, 821,960, slight increase but growth slowing, other cities growing faster, warning signs appearing. Economic shifts, 1920s through 1930s changes, manufacturing decline, shoe industry declining, cheaper production elsewhere, other industries facing competition, factories closing or relocating, job losses mounting. Transportation changes, automobiles replacing railroads for passenger travel, trucking competing with rail freight, St. Louis's role as a railroad hub diminishing, river commerce declining, railroads and highways more important. Great Depression, 1929 through 1939, hit St. Louis hard. Bank failures, business closures, unemployment high, wealthy families affected. Population loss begins. 1940 census, 816,048, decline from 1930. 1950 census, 856,796, slight increase from post-World War II boom, but then sharp decline begins. 1960 census, 750,266, below 1920 level. 1970 census, 622,236, massive decline. Why people left? Suburban migration, automobiles made suburbs accessible, federal highway construction, interstate system, FHA loans favored new suburban houses over city renovations, white flight, racial tensions, school integration conflicts. Economic decline, jobs disappearing, young people moving to growing cities, businesses relocating, urban problems, aging infrastructure, crime increasing, schools declining, tax base eroding. Impact on wealthy neighborhoods. Central West End, where many mansions, including Bixby Mansion, located, 1920s through 1940s, still prestigious but starting to change. Some wealthy families moving to newer suburbs, Clayton, Ladue. Some mansions sold, converted to apartments or offices. Maintenance costs difficult during the Depression. 1950s through 1960s, accelerating decline. Many mansions abandoned or converted. Neighborhood deteriorating. Property values falling. Vandeventer Place, private street with gates, elaborate mansions, 1940s to 1950s. Residents leaving, gates opened, no longer exclusive. Mansions demolished. By 1960s, completely gone, replaced by hospital expansion. Lucas Place, earlier mansion district, already declined by 1920s, became commercial district, all mansions demolished. This was the context when William K. Bixby died in 1931. William K. Bixby's death, 1931. December 30th, 1931, William Keeney Bixby dies, age 74. Estate, considerable wealth despite depression, Bixby Shoe Company still operating, though declining, real estate holdings, investments. The mansion passed to heirs, Mrs. Bixby and children. Problem, nobody wants to live there. Why heirs didn't want the mansion? 1. Operating cost. Annual expenses, $25,000 to $50,000 estimates. Property taxes, staff salaries, 15 to 25 people. Utilities, heating, enormous building. Maintenance and repairs. During the Depression, these costs unbearable. 2. Changing lifestyles. Next generation didn't want large staffs, preferred smaller, more modern homes, suburbs more attractive than city. Mansions seen as outdated, impractical. 3. Impossible to sell. Depression ongoing, no market for mansions. Who could afford to buy? Who would want the operating costs? 4. Maintenance backlog. Building aging, approaching 40 years old. Systems outdated, plumbing, heating, electrical. Repairs needed, expensive to update. Initial disposition, 1931 to 1932. Mrs. Bixby and family vacate mansion, some contents sold, furniture, artwork, house closed, staff dismissed, put on the market, asking price unknown, but no buyers. The mansion sits empty. For next 25 plus years, various attempts made to find a use for the Bixby mansion. Proposal 1, private buyer. Throughout the 1930s to 1940s, listed for sale, asking price reduced repeatedly, still no buyers. Why no sale? Depression, 1930s, no money. World War II, 1941 to 1945, all resources toward war effort, no luxury purchases. Post-war, 1946 to 1950s, people want modern suburban homes, not aging mansions. Proposal 2, institutional use. Various institutions considered purchasing. Museums, discussed using for art museum or historical society. Problem, operating costs too high. St. Louis Art Museum already existed in Forest Park. Other museums couldn't afford the building. Schools, private schools considered purchasing. Problem, would require major renovations for classrooms. Cost prohibitive. Hospitals, nearby hospitals expanding, considered for medical offices or auxiliary services. Problem, layout not suitable for medical use, new construction cheaper than conversion. Clubs, social clubs, women's clubs discussed. Problem, membership declining, couldn't support the building, clubs merging or closing, not expanding. Proposal 4, apartment conversion. 1940s to 1950s, converting mansions to apartments common practice, divided single-family homes into multiple units, generated rental income. Bixby mansion conversion considered. Challenges, major renovation required, would need to add kitchens to individual units, bathrooms insufficient, would need to add many more, plumbing, electrical systems inadequate, cost of conversion very high. Economics, rental rates in a declining neighborhood low, couldn't charge enough rent to justify conversion cost, wouldn't generate sufficient return on investment, never happened. Proposal 4, demolition and redevelopment. 1950s, idea demolish mansion, develop land differently. Possibilities, apartment building, commercial building, parking. Problem, neighborhood declining, no developers interested, property values too low to justify new construction, land not valuable enough. With the mansion empty for decades, inevitable decay occurred. Physical deterioration. Roof. Slate shingles loosened, fell, leaks developed, water entered building. Water damage. Roof leaks led to ceiling damage, plaster fell, wood rotted, mold grew. Windows. Broken by vandals, storms, glass missing, weather entered. Heating. No heat, furnace off, no coal. Pipes froze in winter. Burst pipes caused flooding, further water damage. Structure. Settling, cracking. Without maintenance, small problems became large. Structural integrity questionable by 1960s. Vandalism and theft. Empty buildings attracted vandals, broke windows, damaged interiors, graffiti. Thieves. Stripped valuable materials, copper pipes sold as scrap, brass fixtures, doorknobs, light fixtures, carved woodwork, mantels, paneling, sold to salvage dealers, anything removable and valuable. Vagrants, homeless people sheltered inside, built fires for warmth, fire danger, left debris. Safety hazard. By 1960s, buildings structurally unsound, floors unstable, ceilings collapsing, dangerous to enter. City officials cited as hazard, pressure to demolish or secure. Urban renewal and highways, 1950s to 1960s. Federal urban renewal programs. 1949, Housing Act, federal funding for slum clearance. Cities could demolish blighted areas, build new housing, highways, public buildings. St. Louis participated aggressively. 1950s to 1960s St. Louis urban renewal. Demolitions. Thousands of buildings demolished, entire neighborhoods razed, justified as eliminating slums, also destroyed historic buildings. Highway construction. Interstate highway system 1950s to 1960s. Multiple highways built through St. Louis, cut through existing neighborhoods, required demolishing buildings in path. Pruitt-Igoe, massive public housing project built 1954 to 1955, replaced historic neighborhood. 33 high-rise buildings, 2,870 apartments, later failed spectacularly, demolished 1972 to 1976, symbol of urban renewal mistakes. Impact on historic buildings. St. Louis demolished extraordinary number of historic buildings in this era. Other major mansions demolished 1950s to 1960s. Vandeventer Place mansions, all demolished. Grand Avenue mansions, most demolished. Numerous West End mansions, downtown buildings, commercial palaces, hotels. Attitude. Old equals bad. New equals progress. Historic preservation not valued. Modernization prioritized. The Bixby Mansion was caught in this wave of destruction. The decision to demolish, 1968. Final years, mid-1960s. Bixby Mansion still standing, but barely. 75 years old. Empty for 35+ years. Severe deterioration. Neighborhood continuing to decline. Property taxes unpaid, owner unclear, possibly city ownership through tax foreclosure. City pressure. Building cited as dangerous, ordered to be demolished or secured. No owner stepping forward to save it. Preservation efforts. Were there attempts to save it? Historical societies. Some interest expressed, but no funding for restoration. Operating costs too high even if restored. Landmarks Association of St. Louis. Founded 1963, too late for many buildings. Tried to save some mansions, couldn't save everything. Bixby Mansion too far gone. No organized campaign to save Bixby specifically. Why no preservation campaign? 1. Condition too poor. Restoration would cost millions, structural integrity questionable, essentially would need to rebuild. 2. So many buildings threatened. Preservationists overwhelmed, had to choose battles, many other buildings also important. 3. Lack of legal protections. No landmarks law protecting building, owner or city could demolish freely. No mechanism to prevent demolition. 4. Public attitude. Historic preservation not widely valued yet. Progress and modernization popular. Old buildings seen as obsolete. Demolition ordered. 1968, city or property owner decides to demolish. Reason given: safety hazard, public nuisance. No public outcry, few even noticed. The demolition, 1968. The process. Demolition contractor hired. Spring-summer 1968, work begins. Phase 1, salvage. Before wrecking, salvageable materials removed. Any remaining decorative elements, mantels, woodwork, fixtures not already stolen. Stone, granite blocks, which might be reused or sold, metal, copper, brass, iron, sold as scrap, anything with value. Most already gone, 35 years of looting left little. What remained? Structural materials, stone, timber, brick, fixtures too damaged or built in to remove easily, debris, damage. Phase 2, wrecking, equipment, wrecking ball, if available, bulldozers, manual labor, workers with sledgehammers, crowbars. Process. Start with the roof, remove, collapse. Walls next, knock down floor by floor or weaken and collapse. Basement last, fill in or partially remove. Timeline. Several weeks to months, building massive, solidly built. Slow process. What workers found? Interiors destroyed, ceilings collapsed, floors rotted through, water damage everywhere, graffiti, trash, animal nests. Frozen pipes burst and water damage. But glimpses of former grandeur. Carved stone details, bits of decorative plaster, grand scale apparent even in ruins, quality of materials evident. Workers didn't care about history. Just a job, tear it down, haul it away, move to next job. Public reaction, minimal. Few people noticed or cared. No newspaper articles lamenting the loss or very brief mentions. No protests. St. Louis was demolishing so many buildings, one more mansion wasn't news. Disposal of materials. Where did Bixby Mansion go? Stone. Some reused, if suitable, most crushed for fill or road base, or dumped in landfill. Wood. Rotted wood, burned or dumped. Some good timber, salvaged, sold to scrap dealers. Metal. Sold to scrap dealers, copper, brass, iron, recycled. Decorative elements. A few pieces may have been saved, sold to architectural salvage dealers, antique dealers. Most lost. Some might still exist in private collections, other buildings, but unprovenanced. Can't prove they're from Bixby Mansion. Everything else hauled to landfill, buried, gone. By late 1968, Bixby Mansion completely demolished. 75 years after construction, nothing remains. The site today, 2024. Current use, location, 4900 block of Lindell Boulevard, St. Louis. Current status, parking lot. Owner, unknown. Possibly commercial lot, possibly institutional. Appearance, paved asphalt, parking spaces marked, possibly small building or kiosk, utterly ordinary. No historical marker, no plaque, no sign, nothing indicates a mansion once stood there. Unless you know the history, you'd never know, just a parking lot, one of thousands in St. Louis. The neighborhood today, Central West End, partially revitalized, some areas gentrified since the 1970s and 1980s, young professionals moving back, restaurants, shops, property values rising in some blocks, but uneven, some blocks prosperous, others still struggling, a mix of renovation and vacancy. Other surviving mansions, some restored, converted to offices, apartments, single-family homes for wealthy buyers, some still deteriorating. A few became institutions, museums, cultural centers, but most Gilded Age mansions gone. Photographic evidence. What survives of Bixby Mansion? Photographs. Black and white photos, some survive in archives, show exterior. A few interior photos, rare. In collections, Missouri Historical Society, St. Louis Libraries, private collections. Architectural drawings. Possibly some survive, in archives, not easily accessible. Written descriptions, society columns, 1890s to 1920s newspapers, historical records, brief mentions in books about St. Louis architecture. These are all that remain. Looking at photos, impressive scale visible, architectural quality apparent. Understand what was lost. Other remnants, possibly scattered pieces, architectural elements, mantels, doors, windows, carvings, sold to salvage dealers in 1930s to 1960s, may be in other buildings now or in antique shops or private collections, but unidentifiable, no records linking them to Bixby Mansion. Somewhere, a door from Bixby Mansion might be in someone's house, a mantel in an office building, a carved stone piece in a garden, but we don't know. Lost in history. The Bixby Mansion wasn't unique. St. Louis demolished nearly all its Gilded Age mansions. The scale of loss, 1890 to 1920. St. Louis had hundreds of mansions, comparable to New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia, major architectural heritage. By 1980, fewer than 10% survived, most demolished 1920s to 1970s. Specific losses: Vandeventer Place, private street, gated, 40-plus elaborate mansions, all demolished 1930s to 1950s. Site now, hospital, parking, and commercial. Grand Avenue, Mansion Row, dozens of large homes, demolished 1930s to 1960s. Now, commercial street, parking lots. Lucas Place, earlier mansion district, demolished even earlier, 1900s to 1920s. Central West End, hundreds of mansions, 80+% demolished, some survivors but minority. Reasons for widespread demolition. Number 1, population decline. People leaving St. Louis, demand for large homes evaporated, no market for mansions. Number 2, economic decline. Jobs leaving, tax base eroding, city couldn't maintain infrastructure, neighborhoods deteriorated. Number 3, urban migration. Wealthy moved to the suburbs, left mansions behind, no buyers. Number 4, operating costs. Mansions expensive to maintain, taxes, utilities, repairs, heirs couldn't or wouldn't pay. Number 5, changing lifestyles. Large household staffs obsolete. People wanted modern, smaller homes. Mansions impractical. Number 6, urban renewal. Federal programs funded demolition, slum clearance, highways, many historic buildings lost. Number 7, lack of preservation laws. No legal protection for historic buildings, owners could demolish freely. No landmarks commission until 1960s, too late for most. Number 8, public attitude. Old equals bad, new equals progress. Historic preservation not valued, modernization prioritized. Comparison to other cities. Cities that preserved Gilded Age mansions better. Newport, Rhode Island. Many mansions became museums 1940s to 1960s. Preservation Society of Newport County saved dozens. Tourism economy, incentive to preserve. Result, most mansions survive. Savannah, Georgia. Strong preservation movement, historic district protected. Many mansions survive. Charleston, South Carolina. Similar to Savannah, early preservation efforts. San Francisco, some losses but many survivals, preservation movement stronger. New York City, many losses, many Fifth Avenue mansions mostly demolished, but some saved, like the Frick Collection, Cooper Hewitt, and others became museums. Landmarks Law, 1965, protected some. St. Louis. Preservation movement weaker, Economic decline more severe, population loss greater. Result, massive loss of historic architecture. What was lost? Architectural loss. The Bixby Mansion represented Richardsonian Romanesque architecture. Major example of this style in St. Louis. Thomas Annan design, local architect of note. High-quality craftsmanship. Rare example, few Richardsonian Romanesque mansions in the Midwest. Now, can't be studied, can't be experienced, gone. Historical loss. The mansion told story of Gilded Age St. Louis, industrial wealth, social structure, architectural ambition. William K. Bixby's rise, from modest origins to millionaire, shoe industry success, civic leadership. Domestic life, how wealthy Americans lived, staff, entertaining, daily routines, social customs. Now, harder to understand this history without physical evidence. Cultural loss. The mansion was landmark, helped define St. Louis skyline, character, sense of place. Symbol, St. Louis's Gilded Age importance, the city's former greatness. Losing it diminished St. Louis's identity, sense of continuity with past. Economic loss. If preserved, tourism potential. Could be museum, like Newport Mansions, attract visitors, generate revenue. Neighborhood anchor. Historic building can anchor revitalization, attract investment. Educational resource. School groups, architectural students, local history. Instead, parking lot. Zero tourism value, no educational function, no economic benefit. Lesson 1. Buildings don't survive by default. Natural trajectory of any building, eventual obsolescence, high maintenance costs, owner death or departure, neglect, deterioration, demolition. Survival requires active decision to preserve, ongoing investment, finding a new use if original use obsolete, legal protection, community support. Bixby Mansion, no one chose to save it, therefore demolished. Lesson 2. Economics determine survival. Buildings survive if they generate economic value, museum admission, commercial rent, etc., or owner has unlimited money and commitment, or legal protection prevents demolition despite economics. Bixby Mansion generated no revenue, empty, no owner wealthy enough to maintain it as a money-losing proposition, no legal protection. Result, economics said demolish, demolished. Lesson 3. Timing matters. Preservation movement gained strength 1960s-1970s. Landmark laws passed. National Register of Historic Places, 1966. Tax incentives for historic rehabilitation, 1976. Bixby Mansion demolished 1968, just as preservation movement strengthening. If survived 5 to 10 more years, might have been saved. Wrong timing. Lesson 4. Once lost, lost forever. Cannot rebuild Bixby Mansion. Could construct a replica if someone had unlimited budget, using photos, drawings, hiring craftsmen. But it wouldn't be the same. Different materials, original quarries closed, different craftsmanship, skills lost, different context, surrounded by modern buildings, not Gilded Age neighborhood. Copy, not original, would lack authenticity, history. Original Bixby Mansion, built 1893, demolished 1968, gone forever. This is true of all demolished historic buildings. Demolition is permanent. Lesson 5. Individual decisions have collective consequences. Each mansion demolished seemed like individual decision. Owner couldn't afford it, building deteriorated, demolished. But collectively, St. Louis lost nearly all its Gilded Age architecture, changed city's character, erased visual history, reduced tourism potential, made city less distinctive. If St. Louis had preserved even 25% of mansions, would have major tourism industry like Newport, stronger architectural identity, more beautiful city, economic benefits. Instead, most demolished. Parking lots and vacant land, lost opportunity. Individual decisions collectively destroyed St. Louis's architectural heritage. What could have been? Imagine if the Bixby Mansion survived. Scenario: Bixby Mansion today. If preserved in 1970s, 1980s, possible uses: 1. Museum, Decorative Arts Museum, St. Louis History Museum, Architecture Museum, period rooms showing Gilded Age life. 2. Cultural Center, concert hall, art gallery, event space, community programs. 3. Institutional use, university building, foundation headquarters, nonprofit offices. 4. Adaptive reuse, luxury apartments divided into 3 to 5 high-end units, boutique hotel, restaurant, and event space. If museum today, 2024, visitor experience, tour mansion rooms, drawing room, dining room, library, bedrooms, see Gilded Age furniture, artwork, and decorative objects, learn about Bixby family, understand St. Louis history, experience Richardsonian Romanesque architecture. Annual visitors 50,000 to 100,000 estimate based on comparable museums. Economic impact: admission revenue, gift shop, events rental, jobs, staff, docents. Tourism multiplier: visitors spend on hotels, restaurants. Educational value: school programs, university architecture classes, community lectures. Civic value: landmark, source of pride, tourist attraction, historical resource. Parking lot. Other St. Louis mansion survivals. Not all St. Louis mansions were demolished. A few survived. Campbell House Museum, built 1851, earlier than Bixby Mansion. Style: mid-19th century townhouse. Status: museum, operated by Campbell House Foundation. Preserved because family kept it until 1938. Contents largely intact. Donated to become museum. Excellent condition. Strong support. Open to public today. Chatello de Menil Mansion, built 1849 to 1863. Style: Greek Revival. Status: museum. Preserved because early preservation effort, 1960s, community support, foundation formed to save it, open to public today. Samuel Couples House, built 1888 to 1890, style: Richardson Romanesque similar to Bixby Mansion, owner: Samuel Couples, woodenware manufacturer, status: part of St. Louis University campus, museum. Preserved because donated to university 1946. University used it for offices, events, later became museum. 42 rooms, spectacular interiors. Open to public today. Proves St. Louis Gilded Age mansions could survive if institutions took them over. Scattered survivors. Central West End. Some mansions survive as single-family homes, restored by wealthy buyers. Some as offices, law firms, medical practices. Some as apartments, converted. But these are minority, most demolished. The Bixby Mansion story summarized. 1893 built. Symbol of Gilded Age wealth and ambition. Architectural masterpiece. Center of St. Louis society. 1893 to 1931, peak years. William K. Bixby and his family lived there. Entertaining, philanthropy, civic leadership. 1931, Bixby dies. His heirs don't want the mansion. Too expensive, impractical. 1932 to 1968, empty. Deteriorating. Various proposals for reuse fail. Vandalized, stripped, collapsing. 1968, demolished. Torn down completely. Material scattered, dumped, lost. 1968 to 2024 parking lot. No marker, forgotten by most. The broader pattern. This happened to Bixby Mansion, St. Louis, Bacon Towers, Newport, demolished 1945, hundreds of Fifth Avenue mansions in New York, demolished 1920s to 1960s, countless Gilded Age mansions across America. Only those actively preserved survived. Final reflection. Drive down Lindell Boulevard in St. Louis today. You'll see traffic, modern buildings, parking lots, trees. You won't see any trace of Bixby Mansion, no historical marker, no indication of what stood there. Unless you know the history, you'd never know. A castle once stood there, where William K. Bixby built his monument, where St. Louis society gathered, where American ambition created something magnificent and then destroyed it, because no one chose to save it, because economics made demolition easier than preservation, because we valued parking more than history. The Bixby Mansion is gone, but the lesson remains. Preservation doesn't happen by accident. Historic buildings survive only when communities decide they matter, when individuals fight for them, when economics align with preservation through creative reuse, tax incentives, legal protection. Otherwise, even the grandest mansion dies, becomes rubble, becomes a parking lot, becomes forgotten. St. Louis learned this lesson too late. Most of its Gilded Age architectural heritage gone. A few survivors prove what could have been. The parking lots show what was lost. If you're interested in American architectural history, historic preservation, and the buildings we failed to save, please like and subscribe. Tell us in the comments, have you visited St. Louis? Did you know about its lost Gilded Age mansions? What historic buildings in your area have been demolished? These aren't just building stories. They're stories of choices. What we save, what we destroy, what we value, what we forget. Thank you for watching.